Morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome on over to another episode of the Speak the Truth podcast. I'm your host, Matt Tardio, and today we're going to be talking about how bombing the Houthis over in Yemen actually has a huge impact on the global economy and what that means for the Russian war effort over inside of Ukraine, what it means for the Ukrainian war effort. Because if you didn't know, Zelensky just announced that he's going to magically acquire $30 to $50 billion to acquire a new weapons package from the United States of America. That's set to be the largest arms sale in U.S. history. You can't make this stuff up. And that's, pretty much going to give Zelensky, I think, what he's going to need to launch a massive campaign against the Russians. So how did we get there? What in the frickin' world happened? Well, that's a very good question. As we're waiting on everybody to pour in today, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open up this little short video and let you guys enjoy it as, we wait to get going. I love this guy. He always gets some of the funniest crap. Before we launch that, you guys had asked me also to take a look at Egypt and why isn't Egypt complaining about the closure of the Red Sea? Not closure, but the 80%, 75 to 80% drop in merchant traffic and the impacts it has on their economy. I got those figures for you guys too. And we actually had a statement come out from Egypt, I think it was today, on this particular matter. So all that more going to be coming at you guys. Oh yeah, figured out where they're sending all the Palestinians. So look forward to that one too. Hey, check this out.
Palestinian history stretches back millions of years, and I want to take you on a journey to understand the history of this very unique people, starting all the way back in the Jurassic period, through to the indigenous kingdom of Palestine at the time of Jesus, up into the modern genocided, apartheided state of Palestine, with its capital between Gaza and Al-Quds, or occupied East and West Jerusalem. So let's start back in the Jurassic period. This is Sinwarasaurus shahidi, colloquially known as Jihadasaurus rex. These dinosaurs began modern-day Palestinian history when a colonial asteroid from space hit Palestine 66 million years ago. These Jihadasaurus rex violently resisted against occupation in order to stop this asteroid's galactic colonization of historic Palestine, obviously in strict accordance to UN Human Rights Council resolutions. Unfortunately, most of them did not survive the genocide, but they did set the groundwork for the ancient kingdom of Palestine at the time of Jesus. Let's fast forward to a time where everyone was Muslim, the time of Jesus Christ. Once Moses took the Shahada, he passed his indigenous Palestinian Muslim birthright on to Jesus Christ. And here we have an artifact for the time of Palestinian Jesus. This is an ancient Palestinian oil lamp made for native indigenous Palestinian olive oil. On this oil lamp, you can see what looks like a Zionist lie known as a menorah. This is actually an ancient Palestinian artifact known as the 8-branched Palestinian toothpick. In modern-day Palestine, we call it maqlube. The ancient Palestinian Bible would use this toothpick to remove knafe hairs from 8 teeth at once. In this ancient Palestinian scroll, you can see a depiction of a Palestinian noblewoman. They knew her as Cleopatra. You can see here her hijab, as she was a good Muslim. And this is an ancient Palestinian clay phone. You see, the Zionists always like to talk about how they invented the cell phone. But actually, Palestinian telecommunication was really forward for its time. They used to use the sounds of the native indigenous Palestinian night owl to communicate with one another. This night owl would make the Houthi call. It's kind of hard to reproduce, but let me try. No. That's it. This is how they would sink Zionist and American pirate ships coming to colonize the shores of ancient indigenous Palestine. Ladies and gentlemen,
dude, I can't, man. He said he had to cut it short for that particular upload, and that's fine because that video is flipping hilarious and I couldn't stop laughing. This video actually ended up happening today as well. Don't worry, we're going to get to the economy, but this is one of the videos that Macron ended up sharing of her whining and complaining about wanting to get back over into Gaza. And I realized something this morning, that all of the complaining about how starving everybody is in Gaza, maybe it's because they are just too they're just used to eating so much free food that's supplied to them by the rest of the world. And so when this lady actually had to eat normal amounts of food, it is possible that that is why they think they're starving, because they have been just getting overfed this entire time. I very well could be. Maybe that's why she feels she's hungry. I don't know. But Macron is going out there making more and more statements today talking about how the, how do I want to say this? How we need to be supporting them more, and how a two-state solution is what is going to work. I can't make this crap up. His actual thought process is that a two-state solution is what is needed and not all of this war, that essentially we could stop killing. And he says that in order to make it happen, you have to have some sort of respect for one another, as if, like, you know, one side not recognizing the other one's actual legitimate right to life and live in that particular area is somehow going to cause problems. And I started to think, well, that reminds me of a particular set of issues that we're dealing with over there right now, particularly why somebody else is going to, you know, like launch a major attack on somebody else's territory and murder a bunch of people and take hostages and strangle babies. Incog Faraday coming in and giving out 5 Speak the Truth memberships. Greatly appreciate you, man. So over inside of Syria, this is where the Palestinians will be going. These are the first 2 looks. Now, all of these camps that are over inside of Syria for these Palestinians to be relocated are actually been used for refugees from the actual war that's been taking place in Syria for a really long time. So I went down a really interesting path today, and I looked into where everybody was going to be going and where they're going to be, like, shipping them to. And it's all up over in northern Syria, up over near the Turkish border. And so that gave me an immediate aha moment. Maybe this is why the Turks are actually going in. So if you actually think about it and you look at the map, and all of these things are going to be up there. Now, I also ended up getting, I don't want to say this, a little bit upset as well. Because I started to look into UNRWA and the different camps that they actually have in and around Syria. And it is a metric buttload of camps over in Syria. I wouldn't say a buttload of camps, but they have quite a few, right? Syria, or UNRWA has quite a few camps over inside Syria for the Palestinians. But aside from all of that crap, they're going to be going all the way up over in the north. And UNRWA, believe it or not, I believe has a camp in Homs, Damascus, Aleppo, and a couple other ones that are scattered out there. But they're not going to those ones. They're going to ones that were designed for refugees from the Syrian conflict. So they're all going to end up getting flown out and or get shipped out, I guess, all the way up here near the Turkish border. Now, that would make sense if Turkey was actually going into Syria in order to kind of like secure those areas and then start like building up and getting all that stuff like ready to go. Now, if that was actually in talks for a while, that would be pretty cool. Allow Turkey to take over that would actually make sense. But I feel like that is something that Netanyahu and Trump would have had a discussion about, and Netanyahu would not have been worried about why Turkey went into Syria, because obviously he's going to be the one coordinating things like that. So I highly doubt that's what's actually going on there. Brandon Cook coming in and giving out 5 Speak the Truth memberships, but I could be wrong. I could absolutely be wrong, but those are some pretty nice looking camps that they're going to have set up. They're huge. They are not going to come equipped with tunnels, so that kind of sucks. And meanwhile, while everybody is busy hating on the United States of America, I mean, particularly like, you know, Greenpeace and the Palestinians and everything, this is a U.S. embassy that the entire water surrounding the embassy ended up getting dyed with like red dye. And they did this to show solidarity with the Palestinian people, because apparently we're killing all of them, right? By providing them a safe and smart place to live away from Hamas while the entire Gaza Strip gets rebuilt. Allegedly, that warrants, you know, taking our embassy and dyeing the entire thing red, because that makes perfect freaking sense. That actually came out of you guys. That's the U.S. embassy over inside of the U.K. that ended up happening. So, what actually led me to start looking into the EU's economy and how it's affecting and being affected by the closure of the Red Sea by the Houthis. Christo coming in gifting out a Speak the Truth membership. This is something that we have touched on quite a bit over on this channel. And the Houthis down inside Yemen. Obviously, Trump in his speech the other day said it was 80% of the merchant traffic. I actually dove into that figure pretty hard, and I'm finding figures up and around there. It's like general consensus is about 75%, but 80% is like a significant amount of freaking ships that are going through the shipping lanes. Over 20,000 ships annually, like 22,000, I think it was like 21 or 22,000 ships would actually pass through the Red Sea on an annual basis prior to the Houthis starting all of this garbage. So you're talking about a buttload of ships with a good chunk of them that are coming over from the EU, passing over there to go do trade with Asia, right? Now, what has been going through there, I'm going to show you guys all of the data and stuff that goes into this, but what has been allowed to get passed through there is a lot of Russian oil, believe it or not. So a lot of the freaking oil and everything like that, you know, obviously the U.S. ended up slapping sanctions all across freaking Russia when they started this conflict off. Right. Well, when the Houthis ended up shutting down the Red Sea, that freed up a lot of those 21,000 ships that were traveling through the Suez Canal, ended up leaving a lot of space open. And Russia is able to then take their oil and ship it through the Suez Canal. Now, if you think about this, That's going to allow them to sell it for a much cheaper cost than anybody else that cannot use the Suez Canal and has to go all the way around Africa and get their stuff over there. You're talking about an additional 10 days of sailing, and the amount of money that actually just goes into the fuels. I was shocked, like goes into the fuel that it takes to move these dang things on a daily basis is freaking mind-numbing. You're talking about like millions of freaking dollars and freaking fuel just to get these damn things to ship all the way around there. Bo Williams coming in, giving out 5 Speak the Truth memberships. Appreciate it. So you can see like how that's going to really start affecting those different prices and stuff like that. When it comes down to Egypt and the amount of money that Egypt has lost through it, and this is where it kind of like blows my mind that Egypt has allowed this for so long, and Egypt decided to become a BRICS nation, which is what's making me wonder if they're not getting kickbacks from Russia for doing this, because Egypt over the last year has lost, no kidding, $7 billion. $7 billion just in the freaking like ticketing fees for taking those vessels and sending them through. $7 billion. All right. This article right here from the National ended up coming out here and talking about it. And it says Egypt has urged Iran to avoid actions that could further destabilize the Middle East, with Cairo pressing the need to restore security to the Red Sea after attacks on shipping by the Houthis. All right. Obviously, Iran backs them. And it's funny here. It says Iran has been accused of supporting a wide range of them. Yeah, no kidding. But here you go. Houthi attacks on shipping in the Red Sea cost Egypt $7 billion in lost shipping tolls in 2024. According to a recent speech by the Egyptian President Sisi, the Yemeni rebels have repeatedly said they are acting in solidarity with Gaza and the war in Israel. Well, that is a very convenient excuse for them to do this. Right? To shut all of that down, because who do you think is going to be benefiting from all of this oil being shipped through the freaking Suez Canal at a much lower cost than that of anybody else? It is absolutely nuts. So let's take another look over here at some of this other information. Give me 1 sec while I open this up so that you guys can look at it. So Zelensky ends up coming out and stating the other day that he wants to make a up to $50 billion purchase, all right, of U.S. weapons. He said it's not like going to be a portion of the security guarantee. He doesn't expect the U.S. to have to pay for it. Where he's going to get the money from is a very good question. I heard a lot of people say that he's going to end up sourcing this money from the EU. Well, there's a lot of speculation that that's where it's going to come from. Now, to give you guys an idea, the amount of money that he's actually like been spent as far as like security and all that crap, or that the U.S. has actually spent on, is around $84 billion. So when you look at like the amount of like supplies that have actually like made their way into Ukraine, like actual monetary value of things, I get it. It's not the true value, whatever. All right. But we're talking big numbers here, 84 billion. All right. Plus the amount of money that he just announced, 50 billion in purchases. You can imagine what that's going to do to the freaking effort over inside of Ukraine. That is going to be a massive influx of stuff. Some of the things that Zelensky wants to buy are things like Patriot batteries, all right, or air defense assets, things of that nature that are going to provide long-term stability for Ukraine as well. So if Ukraine's going to be buying all this crap, where are they getting the money from? That's a very good question, right? No, this isn't a recording. This is me speaking live there, Gigabyte or Gigabyte 12, Gigabyte 12. This is not a recording. No, this is a live session. So the question ends up being, where is Zelensky going to get this $50 billion from? That's an incredible amount of freaking money when you're really thinking about it. And it's not China. No. They're going to end up, like, this purchase is probably going to go through. All right. They're probably going to be approved for this purchase. And Zelensky, like I said, isn't calling it like for straight security guarantee. So I had to take all these figures and I had to bust all this crap down and figure it out. Now, here's the interesting part. If you go and you look for what I'm talking about now on this live session, you're likely not going to find anything. I spent hours doing research on this, trying to find anybody at all that has an estimate on these numbers and the impact that it has on the EU. And it got me wondering, why hasn't this been talked about? Why hasn't this been talked about at the parliament? Why hasn't anybody brought this up? Why hasn't people in the United States government brought up how much money the EU's actually losing because the Houthis ended up shutting down the freaking shipping lane? Could it come from Russian assets? Probably. But, you know, those seized Russian assets will end up taking and holding on to for a while, and then we'll end up like using them for leverage on something else. So maybe not. So I literally spent a lot of time. Like I spent so much time doing this. It was insane. And the best thing that I could find as far as how much this is like estimated to cost And it looks pretty factual. I ended up running a lot of these figures and numbers through like AI and all sorts of other stuff on the backside, trying to do research. And then what you'll end up finding is that there's no real information out there. You feel free to go over to Google and search for some of the things I'm about to talk about, and you're not going to find it. Like the estimates to the freaking GDP, like the EU's GDP is absolute, like it doesn't exist. Why the hell hasn't anybody talked about this? It is a massive amount of freaking ships. You're talking about 21,000 ships that are going through there and all of that other stuff. And then you're going to have second and third order effects that come from it. This article right here, this was written by Alliance, all right, or Alliance Trade, all right, and they ended up putting this out. Red Sea crisis up to minus 0.9% for the EU's economy. Here you go. It is in Europe that the impact of increased transport costs is greatest. In a few months, if the conflict persists, this will increase European inflation by up to 0.7 percentage points. The growth of the European economy will then suffer a drop of minus 0.9. Now, those are not exactly like massive figures. I get that. But when you're talking about like an actual freaking economy across like the entireness of the EU, and you have inflation plus losses due to all of this, because those ships, as they're going around the freaking the Cape of Good Hope down there in freaking Africa, right? When you look at this, and I know we've talked about this, it is a massive increase to go all the way around. Now it's a little bit like different when you talk about like the ships, maybe if they're coming out from like the UK or anything, coming all the way around, when they could sail and come through here versus have to go through here. When we measured this out before and we said it was a 10x increase, we're talking about from the Suez Canal all the way around, like going over, like basically from point A to freaking point B, right? And it does affect the Ukrainian economy as well, because their ability to ship out all of their freaking exports and all of the costs and everything like that also goes up. And all those ships, all the time that they're on the sea, and I want you to think about this, the amount of time that they're sailing on the sea also adds up. Those ships can now do less runs every year. So that also impacts the freaking, but none of that is really taken into account when we look at any of this stuff. It's just literally the effects on the economy and the numbers that are going into it. And what we ended up coming up with as a figure, and figure-wise, ends up being pretty insane. All right. So for a total of the GDP's growth, estimated GDP for the EU last year, all right, what it ends up being coming off of that 0.9% ends up being about $164 billion. So $164 billion would be the added freaking loss, or the exceptional loss to the EU. $164 billion estimated. That is a buttload of money. And I'm just going to tell you guys this. I am not a freaking investor. I am not like any of that. Do not take money advice from me. I'm a freaking military dude. But I just felt the absolute need to have to look into this because it is such an astronomical amount. And yet nobody's talking about it. Why the hell isn't that a thing? Like, we're freaking losing our minds over $1 billion at Doge when they end up coming up. We're losing our minds when it comes to freaking like, you know, like a couple million going to like circumcisions. But here we have an estimated $164 billion and nobody's saying a dang word about it. That's freaking insane. So if the U.S. is successful in opening up these shipping lanes over here, I know I had mentioned it and I had brought this up, all right? If the U.S. is successful in opening up these shipping lanes, that would mean the economy in the EU is going to get better. It's going to lower inflation over inside of the EU. Matt said to buy more AMC stock. It's going to the moon this time. Look, I did not say that. That is a lie. That is a lie. But this is going to help the EU's economy. This is going to bring inflation down when the sucker opens up. And it's going to also bring the cost of some of these commodities going out way down. So that's going to drive the economy in the EU through the damn roof again. And that means they're going to have a lot more money. So when Zelensky says that he's going to end up getting $50 billion in freaking purchases, or he's going to purchase at $50 billion worth of weapons from the United States government, well, there you go. Kind of makes sense now, doesn't it? Because a lot of people are saying he's going to get that money from the EU. So when I said we're talking about chess, not checkers, like 4D chess at that, when it goes into all of this, that's exactly what I'm talking about. 4D chess. 4D. That's freaking insane. right? And to me, when we start talking about how is this going to impact the war and what I talked about, now it makes sense. Now it makes sense why Vladimir Putin told the United States not to bomb the shit out of the Houthis, because they were benefiting from it. As a matter of fact, Russia was benefiting from this a lot because all of that Russian oil and stuff going through there, that's where it goes. And if you don't believe me, hold on, where'd it go? Nope, I'm going to have to open up this other one. The EU actually put something out that was huge on this, which also blew my mind. It's a freaking huge document. Huge document. Let me open this sucker up. Come on now. So this document came out in March of 24. Okay. It's from the European Parliament. Recent threats in the Red Sea, economic impact on the region and on the EU. Now, out of this entire document, they don't give predictions on like the percentage that it's going to affect. They don't give predictions on shit. They just say it'll negatively impact basically when they go down it. But one of the things that they actually talk about in here, all right, in this document is, oh, wait, I know where to get this quote from. You guys are going to love this. Hold on. Let me just grab this because it'll allow me to pull it straight up. This right here. In its latest outlook, the World Bank noted that in the context of an escalation conflict, energy supplies could be distributed and prices could increase anew, according to U.S. Energy Information, blah, 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 blah. They accounted for 8.8 billion barrels a day, total oil flows, or 21% of the global petroleum consumption. This is all of the crap that's going through this frickin' strait. 4.1 billion cubic feet a day of liquid natural gas shipments in the first half of 23. However, as of the time of writing this, such increase in prices has yet to materialize. This came out in March of 24. The Economist argues that this is due to the fact that half of the crude oil that passes through the Suez Canal is of Russian origin and flows to Asia. So half of the oil going through the Suez Canal is going from Russia to Asia. Think about that. Half of the oil going through the Suez Canal is going from Russia to Asia. And Russia, obviously, is going to have a lot of favors being done by Iran because they're the ones that are controlling the damn Houthis. And their stuff's going to be allowed to pass through the Suez Canal. And so they're going to be allowed to sell all this crap off. And they're not going to have to wait in line to get their ships through. There's no line. They've just been going back and forth for the last freaking year and a half, doing whatever the hell they want. Think about that. Think about the amount of oil and sales that Russia has been able to get because the Suez Canal has been closed off. Now it's starting to make a little bit more sense, right? Because the EU hasn't been able to send their shit through there, nor has the US. Russia, however, 100% can push all the crap that they want through there. And so when we close off this freaking shipping lane, or excuse me, when we reopen the shipping lane, right? When that sucker is reopened here in the very near future, because we're about to bomb the living hell out of them, that's going to free up so much money, it's not even funny, going over to the EU. A lot. So when Zelensky says he's going to get $50 billion acquired, that's where it's coming from. It's got to be. That's what makes sense to me, because the U.S. ain't giving it to him, so then the EU would pony up, right? And at the same time, Russia's economy is going to take a massive freaking slap, because that's going to drive the price of oil down over in Asia, which means less money for Russia. That's insane. And at the same time, Ukraine is going to be able to purchase $50 billion worth of equipment just in freaking save money. That's already lost. So the EU is going to net like 80 billion when you look at it like that. And when you start talking about like the flow of weapons and things that need to go into Ukraine in order to get that like effect on the front line, that's where it's at. So now Ukraine going to be able to purchase those $50 billion. And I've said this before, if Ukraine actually had all of that money thrown into them at one time, that the U.S. and the EU has provided, all of that money, all of that war equipment, if we would have provided everything up front, the battlefield inside of Ukraine would look completely and totally different. But we slowly trickled that shit in over time. And we continue to slowly trickle it in. But if Ukraine ends up buying it, bam. Now, it's going to take a long time for all that crap to get produced, but they'll be able to produce it. And Trump had made a promise during his presidency. He had said that if Russia doesn't want to play ball when it comes to peace with Ukraine, that he's going to be supplying Ukraine with every single thing they need. He didn't say we're going to be giving it all. He's going to make sure they're supplied with it. So when Zelensky puts in this order for 50 billion, 30 billion, 40 billion worth of like U.S. arms, weapons, and equipment, I want you to think about that. It is going to get approved. And that money is not going to come from the United States of America. We're not recycling our own cash for this. All of that's actually like positive net flow coming into the USA. And that's freaking good for America. So yeah, this stuff, this weapons sale is going to get approved. I mean, why wouldn't it? Ukraine wants Patriot batteries, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Good. But think about what that 50 billion is going to do to the war front when that goes in. Better show that money first. That's right. Well, I mean, they might allow them to make payments on it, et cetera. I don't know how they're going to do it. We'll find out the details here in a little bit. But you want to talk about actual aid and support going into Ukraine, there it is. And I told you guys that you need to be patient when it goes down to all of this crap and that you need to pay attention to what's kind of like happening on the global stage because it all affects, right? Bo Williams says, Matt, what is Macron's goal in visiting Gaza? Also, Egypt's buildup on the border. What is their goal in your opinion? So I think Egypt is going to, one, make sure that, well, what they should be doing, because the United States, again, okay, when we look at this, I have no idea what Russia has been like, or Iran has been throwing Egypt's way by shutting all that traffic off on the backside. If there's some sort of money that has been moving over there that I'm not aware of, right? I don't know. But when it goes down to Egypt, okay, and their freaking goal of being up over there on the border, when we go into there, zoom in here for you. So there was a, here, I'll go find it over here. So if you guys want all of that information that I just shared up on the screen and you go over to my profile over on X and you click on this top post, it'll have all those different links and stuff like that for you. So you'll be able to go over there and get all that information. So yesterday, that's a good question. I'm getting there. I have to go back through all this garbage that ended up getting shared yesterday, this video. So this video ended up, it's AI, ends up getting put out yesterday. And one side it says Gaza, one side it says Egypt, and they're trying to pretend that this is what's going on that side of the border. It's not. This is AI generated. On the left side, you see how the smoke is all blowing off into the left. And then on the right side, you see all the flags are like rippling and moving up and to the right. So it's AI. Now, I believe, personally, what I would like to think is that the Egyptian military has built up over there to ensure that this doesn't happen. But I don't think that's true. I really don't. I think what the Egyptian military is doing over there is going to, how do I want to say this? Is going to be responsible for some type of security for things that are yet to come. I ended up getting told yesterday where some of these flights were taking place out of, okay, because they're already beginning to move Palestinians out of the Gaza Strip, which is good. All right. They are currently leaving, here we go, looks like from the Ramon Airport north of Elliot. So that is a hell of a movement to get all of those people out. When I hypothesized yesterday about what it is that we're going to be doing over inside of this little like safe zone, let me get that little piece up on the screen for you guys so that you guys can understand that. So moving them out of that little safe zone is also like very curious to me because, how do I want to say this? Number one, Rafah is like completely and totally cut off, right? Like they are surrounded and all that other crap, and they should be marching on it very, very soon. But when we start talking about how are we going to ship these 2 million people out and up into Syria and everything else, I want you to think about the logistics it would take to continue to move that many people. Like what's currently taking place, in my opinion, is going to be some sort of a short-term plan. Now, what Israel is not going to want to do is take all of these freaking Palestinians and allow them to move through their territory. And at the same time, you're talking about an active war zone over inside of Gaza. So Israel is going to be doing a lot of fighting. Just look over here, for example. And I had hypothesized yesterday, well, if they end up taking this and turning this into a buffer zone right here, which they are, because it's cut off, they've evacuated all of Rafah and it's cut off. So you've got Hamas and probably hostages and a bunch of other people that are just chilling over inside there right now, right? So that area is cut off. Well, that would mean right? That they're going to have a way to get these people the hell out of Gaza to get up there. And I'd hypothesize that they're going to put an airport somewhere down over here, like a temporary one, right? Like the U.S. can come in and we can lay out freaking like mats and all sorts of shit. We can set up temporary airfields. I don't think that's going to be the case because I started thinking about it with Hamas being a terror organization and having tunnels and all this other crap. Flying those airplanes into the Gaza Strip would be very, very dangerous. Flying them into the Gaza Strip would be very, very dangerous. And so what I'm thinking is that potentially, they might be putting one in over inside the Sinai Peninsula. That's what I think. If they end up like finding some open space over here in the Sinai, and you have that massive Egyptian military presence, which again, there's plenty of open space over there, right? This is Gaza right here, okay? This is Gaza right here. But there's plenty of freaking open space for them to drop in an airfield out there, temporary. And the Egyptian military can actually secure this entire area and make sure those people don't go anywhere and help out with like humanitarian issues, aid, and all the other crap. And it also makes sense because a lot of the humanitarian aid that's going into Gaza is coming through a port like right over here, okay? That's being flown into there. And so if you move everybody down here temporarily, because it's going to take a while, right, to either get them flights or to get them buses. I have no idea how the hell they plan on moving 2 million people, but that's a massive freaking effort. Maybe it won't be 2 million. Maybe it'll be like 1.5, right? Who the hell knows? But you're talking about from here all the way up into freaking northern Syria. This is a massive relocation issue, okay? You're talking about from here all the way up to like here-ish. About 500 miles. Moving 1.5 million people about 500 miles. I would expect them to have nothing but aircraft that are constantly like rotating around or whatever, if that's where they're all going. But it looks like they have the ability to do it. Okay, cool. So we're going to take them, we're going to move them, we're going to get them north. And so I think the Egyptian military is going to be responsible for a lot of that crap, personally. Because if that ends up happening, if we end up opening that up, and if that's kind of like the plan for moving these people about, you're talking about the potential for Hamas to be working their way out, the hostages and everything else. I don't know. It's crazy to me. It's crazy to me, but that's what the word on the street is, that's where they're going. And they had hinted at it the other day, saying that they were going to be moving the Palestinians up over into Syria. People were joking about it, but it looks like that's actually going to be a thing, which is insane. I mean, that is a massive movement of freaking people. So when we get back and we start talking about this document that the EU ended up putting out, great, you guys made me lose it. Bam, found it. Let's get this back up here. Prolonged delays, particularly in container shipping, pose a direct threat to the global supply chains, especially for industries that rely on just-in-time manufacturing and inventory, such as retailers and tech, automotive manufacturers, raising the risk of delayed deliveries at a high cost. In January, car manufacturers, especially the producers of electric vehicles, right, that are dependent on things from Asia, announced brief halts and slowdowns in their EU factories in early 24. Retailers in the shoe and apparel industry, same shit. As regards costs, they note that it will take time for higher prices to hit consumers, with the full impact expected within a year. So you're there now. Food security challenges. Grain shipments from Europe, the Russian Federation, and Ukraine. Rice shipments from India. Impact on maritime fees collected by countries such as Egypt and the Suez Canal. January 24, they'd already dropped by 40%. Commodities exports. Ladies and gentlemen, when we start talking about what the Houthis did and where it goes from, you can start really seeing quickly how all of that's going to go. Last but not least, all of those things end up combining to make inflation very high. Supply chain disruptions and higher costs contributed to the shipping spike global inflation in 21 and 22 due to Ukraine. Evil Rick, good question. Why has Trump put more pressure on Ukraine, who is invaded? Obviously, Russia doesn't want peace. What's up? I'm not really sure, Evil Rick, what pressure you're talking about when it comes to Ukraine. Like putting pressure on them as far as like actually working towards a peace deal, because we're talking to Ukraine directly. Like that's it. And we've been giving Ukraine a buttload of money. And there's this old saying called beggars can't be choosy. And so Trump was using that. But now Zelensky is being allowed to purchase a buttload of freaking stuff from the USA. Putin's not playing ball. Putin's not playing ball. So if Putin's not going to play ball, then we're going to back the hell out of Zelensky, which just took a little bit of time. And I told everybody, just be patient, wait for it to happen, and it'll be just fine. Obviously, concessions have to take place for a ceasefire deal, right? When you start talking about, let me get this up here. When you start talking about landmass that Russia's in control of, right? When you start talking about that landmass that Russia's in control of, it creates a big problem, okay? Creates a big problem because Russia would have zero incentive whatsoever, and I mean zero, to give up any of this land over inside of Ukraine. None. Hey, a little bit fast. Zero incentive to give up any of this land over inside of Ukraine. Their goal, when you look at it, and it's been my belief, and I think most people's belief, that Russia was looking at establishing that land bridge going between Donetsk and Crimea, that they wanted to accomplish that. And while everybody was busy up here fighting in the early days of the war, and Ukraine blew a buttload of their freaking munitions and stuff on their counteroffensive, pushing Russia back down into the south to where they're currently at, they were busy building up their defensive lines. And that's exactly where Ukraine stopped at. So Russia built their lines around exactly what they wanted to keep, and they've been keeping it. And so when it goes down to pressuring Ukraine, Zelensky has been stating since the start of this war that they will not stop. And I presented this question before. Zelensky has been saying since the start of this war that he's not going to stop until Russia is out of every square inch of sovereign Ukrainian territory. That would include Crimea and the Donbass. And so if that's what he's pushing to do this entire time, well, then there's not a concession. And in order to get peace out of both countries, you're going to need a concession. If there's going to be a ceasefire deal or there's going to be a truce or something, there has to be a concession. Zelensky didn't want it. Period. He didn't. He didn't want it. And so he had to be hard on Zelensky to try to get him to come to the frickin' table. And at the same time, yeah, we don't like Putin. We don't like Russia. We have to put pressure on them, and we've already pressured the shit out of them with the amount of sanctions that are taking place over there. All right, Evil Rick says, from what I've seen, there's more criticism of Ukraine than Russia from our government. I might not see the end goal, but it seems this is kind of backwards. Yeah. And so this goes down to people not knowing facts. And this is what kills me. Thanks for bringing this up, because it's not just our government that is over there pressuring Ukraine, right, when it comes to all this crap. In my opinion, because I don't think they have very good... Everybody up in the government, like, truthfully, I don't think has a damn clue what's going on either in the Middle East or frickin' over inside of Ukraine. Give me a sec here. That's why I ended up putting this sucker together. I went over it yesterday. You guys know this, okay? But I want you to take a look, all right? This is like America's understanding of the war in Ukraine. If you guys haven't read this article, it went viral last month. A lot of people were really interested in it. We're like, holy shit. You know, you've got this left-leaning newspaper that said Trump was right on Ukraine. And so now you have the left and the right that are thoroughly convinced that shit like this is why Ukraine's in conflict. He literally put it out. It is time to set the record straight on 3 key points that illuminate why Ukrainians and former President Joe Biden, not merely Russian President Vladimir Putin, bear significant responsibility for the outbreak or perpetuation of a war in Ukraine. He said that it was the violent right-wing militants that started the violence in 2014 that ended up causing the freaking overthrow of the Ukrainian government. Not really overthrow, but whatever. And what provoked Russia into invading Ukraine. This is what people think. And notice how they end up using the language and the verbiage in here. Right-wing militants, Ukrainian right-wing militants. No, they were anti-Russia militants that were getting beaten, shot, killed, falsely arrested, literally beaten and thrown out into the cold to their death by the Ukrainian government that was pro-Putin. That's what was taking place by their law enforcement officials, by everybody else. He brings up Yanukovych, who had won the free and fair election. He brings up Yanukovych winning a free and fair election. He thinks Yanukovych won a free and fair election. This is what the American people think, the right and the left, that he won a free and fair election. That is one of the most false things that I have ever freaking heard in my life. he cheated in 2004 and he freaking, cheated in 2010. How do we know that? Because the EU, and again, this is where like people really need to get their shit together. The European Network of Election Monitoring Organizations, ENEMO, was over there monitoring the entire election. And some of the things that ended up coming out during that are all right here. Destroying ballots, ballots being removed by polling stations, ballot stuffing, bribery, vote buying, closed-door Central Election Committee decision-making unobserved, inconsistent instructions from the Central Election Committee, observers being denied entry into polling stations, observers being denied oversight of vote counting and tabulation, district election commissions temporarily or partially shut down during tabulation process, intimidation of observers, and so much more is all detailed in that report. As a matter of fact, this is one of the freaking renderings, I guess, I don't know what the hell you want to call it, that they ended up putting in there. Overall evaluation of counting. They gave it a bad and very bad evaluation due to negligence and fraud. So fact, negligence and fraud took a major part in that 2010 election to get Yanukovych into office. And the Ukrainians were pissed because now he's magically elected again. Even though the last time he won an election, it got overturned because of fraud. So now you have fraud here, but they don't want a civil war. And so they're kind of going along with this bullshit until it got to the point where it was just going to destroy Ukraine. And it would be right back underneath the Russian thumb. And when they started beating and killing their freaking people that were legally protesting, and then they started passing more laws against these legal protests that were taking place, basically making it illegal to protest, what would you do here in the United States of America? That's why we have a Second Amendment. So if your government becomes corrupt, you can fight back. That is like a core American belief. And here, what we had was a corrupt government that the Ukrainian people ended up standing up against. But because of shit like this, that is so insanely false. It's a good thing it's an opinion article. It's so insanely false that they're then able to freaking spin that narrative. And it's information ops. And Russia is really, really good at it. Information operations. We talk about these things being a battle of physical terrain and human terrain, right? Physical terrain being the war over inside of Ukraine right now. But the human terrain goes down to the support networks and the supply networks. And when Russia first invaded Ukraine, they had a buttload of support from America. I remember seeing downtown Dallas filled with Ukrainian colors. Warmed my soul to actually see that here in the United States. And you can see that everywhere. So how is it in, a couple of years, we went from massive amounts of support for Ukraine to this? Propaganda, ladies and gentlemen, propaganda. If you go and you look at social media and you start pouring through social media, you're going to end up seeing a bunch of random stuff on there. And it drives me nuts. And a lot of it's false, completely and totally false, or extremely misleading, to say the least. Jeff Carroll, I need to figure out why I'm not getting notifications. Did you get pants checked already? Yes, I did. They tried to pants check me, but I just sat there with my knee up like this, and it was like, hey, look at that. I got my freaking pants on, right? When I say false information, man, it's out there so bad, even on really big topics. And you have massive influencer accounts. I'm going to give you an example right here. Hey, look. A stream of a stream of a stream. We're going to go into an indefinite loop and just screw things up. No, that's a bad idea. Wow. Give me a sec here. Insider trading, for example, is one that's coming out right now. Is Trump doing insider trading? No. Ed Krastantine put this out this morning. Dude's got how many millions of followers? 1 million followers plus. All right, he ends up putting it out this morning. Breaking, it's all a farce. Remember a couple of weeks ago when the Trump admin held this massive press conference to celebrate the capture of MS-13 leader, blah, 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 blah? Well, today they abruptly dropped the charges. It's all fake. Yeah, you know what the problem with that is? It's not true. The charges did get dropped because we're freaking kicking him out of the country. And he's going back home. And when he gets home, he's going into jail. And we dismiss them without prejudice, which means that we can charge him again if for some reason they don't want to do it. So he's being deported from the United States of America to go back to his little freaking hometown and get thrown in jail there, so it's not being done on the U.S. taxpayer dime. This is an example of misinformation that gets put out on social media, and they've been doing it a lot. You go and you look through some of these guys' accounts of like the different stuff that they put out, because this is where people get a lot of their freaking information from, right? It's from these accounts. This is where they get it all. The majority of Americans get the like their information from assholes like this. Okay? All of them. They all get it from this type of crap. Majority, especially the youth. And so it's 100% an information operation. And when you have things that are being put out by Russia, right? When you have things that are being put out by Iran, when you have things that are being put out by the Palestinians, and you have mainstream media outlets that are pushing that information, that's infecting the brains over here in the United States of America, which then works its way up. And you will have politicians that want to stay in office that are just going to continue to sit there and spin stuff to appease their constituents. It's easier to fool someone than convince them they've been fooled. One of my most favorite quotes of all time. You cannot go back and convince people after they've bought into this freaking lie that it's the truth, even if you put stuff and information right in front of them. You can't. For whatever reason, all right, for whatever reason, Americans, Europeans, all of us, we all buy into this crap. You buy into something, you buy into a belief, and even when presented with empirical data, they cannot turn it off. They have to sit there and screw themselves in the head over and over and over again. That's why we're losing. That's why this information, like the information war is real, ladies and gentlemen. It's real. It's real when it comes to the war in Ukraine, and it's real when it goes to Israel as well. Facts don't matter anymore. The massive amount of shit. And you know the other reason why all of these things are freaking bad, and I did this demo a little bit ago when it comes to like misinformation and how that gets put out. All right, Grok, for example. You guys will know this. You can say Trump isn't manipulating the market, but somebody was buying the dip. A billionaire somewhere bet against the U.S. economy and won. Okay, so insider trading applies when you take not public information and you disclose it to benefit somebody else. That's insider trading. When Trump blasts out on a public accessible platform that then gets shared across all of the other freaking platforms, now's a good time to buy. That's not exactly insider trading. It's not. It's so ridiculous. Are we redefining insider trading now? Smart investors? People that want to follow his advice? Like, I don't get it. That's not insider. You had access to the same information as everybody else. So I asked Rock, what was the first hospital in Gaza to get directly bombed by Israel following the October 7th attack? And it comes up with the Ali Arab Hospital in Gaza City, which is the one where 500 people ended up getting killed, allegedly, at the start of the conflict. And then we come to find out it was a Hamas rocket that misfired, maybe killed 15 people. There's a small, tiny little crater in the middle of a parking lot. Didn't even directly, again, I asked it directly impact the hospital. That's why. And when you ask information on Ukraine about its corruption and things of that nature, because what it's doing is it's pulling information, and you can go look at it. Wikipedia, that's not a very good source. BBC.com, pulling things up. OHCHR, already talked about how jacked up they are. CNN, and they're all just putting the same things out there. This is where it's pulling the information from. And so it's just taking publicly accessible information, and when you have mass amounts of it that have been blasted out, it is going to take that and it's going to reason with itself, and it's going to tell you that, yes, this is fact-based information because all of these other people said stuff on it, and it's not true. Figures. Will 50 million arms deal create heightened aggression from Russia? I believe it was billion with a B, not million, but billion with a B. Would it create heightened aggression from Russia? Certainly. The moment that that is like publicly available knowledge that that happened, when we announce that, Russia is going to want to increase aggression. But the problem is, like we talked about, the logistical aspect of everything that's going into it. Is Russia going to be able to do it? Because they have been getting a significant amount of support from all of these countries that we're currently going after. They've been getting a significant amount of support from Iran. Iran's about to get bombed into freaking oblivion. Russia is about to be broke because we're about to reopen the shipping lanes, which is going to drive the cost. It's going to create competition on the market. When that lane is reopened, when the Suez Canal is back open to everybody, when the Red Sea can be used by everybody, it's going to create competition on the market. And with Russia supplying, what was it, 50% of the oil passing through there? And shipping is down 80% through the Suez Canal. The majority of the ships going through there are going to be like Russian ships or Iranian ships. They're not going to have money to go out and buy the things that they need. And at the same time, Ukraine is going to be getting all of the weapons and everything else that they want. And I see people saying, yeah, Russia's already broke. You're dang right. They're already broke. And so when this opens up, boom, that's what's going to hit them. So I love that. That's going to trash them. It's going to wreck them. That is what makes me so freaking happy about this. Because not only are we impacting Iran and their ability to project across the Middle East, we're also impacting Russia, and we're doing it in a significant amount. So yeah, I would expect an uptick in aggression, but the problem is when I look at this is what aggression do they have left? We blew up like over a year's worth of their freaking cruise missiles the other day. Over a year's worth of Russian cruise missiles got taken out in a freaking drone strike. Where are they going to get the money to rebuild those damn things? Where are they going to be getting those supplies from? Iran's been supplying them with what? The Iskander ballistic missiles, drones, things of that nature. All those are about to get freaking wrecked. So not only are they going to lose a major supplier for their war efforts, not only did they just lose a year's worth of ballistic missiles, but now the freaking Russian economy is about to take a massive blow when this lane's opened up. They're about to lose money, which is going to affect their ability to purchase more stuff. And then the EU is going to be funding Ukraine with a ton of money, which they're going to use in order to buy weapons. And those weapons are going to make their way to the front line. Logistics wins wars. So does the thing between your two ears. And when you're talking about a war between two countries like that, you've got to think on a global scale and look at everything that's going to be impacting it. That's freaking nuts when I look at it. I'm curious. I want to talk to you guys. I'm going to open up the Discord. So I'm going to move in there. So I want to hear from you guys over in the Discord about what you guys think about all this information. All right. If you're a brand new True supporter, or if you're a True supporter, there is a link, all right, underneath the posts. You go to the posts on our main YouTube page, and you'll be able to see them. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. All right. Let me make sure that I'm turned on in here. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. Go ahead and throw your likes up. Make sure that you're able to get in there. Get everything that you need. All right. Let me start that. Run that up again. And I'll get the camera up and running. And I'm in here to take questions from everybody up over in the Discord. If you guys haven't been a member of our Discord community, you should. There's a lot of trash that floats around in there, but it's also a very, very supportive community. So make sure you get up over into the Discord and you guys are, I don't know, following along. It's a good place to be. Lots of people have been helped in there. I know for a fact lives have been changed inside of our Discord server. I also know for a fact that our Discord community is one of the dang best. One of the dang best. And I want you guys to think about some of the things that we accomplished on this channel. By being a True supporter, what do you get out of it? What do you get out of being a True supporter? Number one, you get that community that's over there in Discord because it is one of the best. Number two, we've done things. Ladies and gentlemen, we raised 20 grand. We did that. Raised $20,000 to fly Ethan's body back home and get him buried this year. This channel has done some of the best interviews around. They haven't got a lot of freaking views, but we've been making huge, huge impacts. Nate Vance. This channel ended up interviewing Nate Vance and getting his freaking like view switched around and getting him back in good graces with the White House. Leivelsberger's wife was on here just a couple months ago. Exclusive interview. Nobody else got it. I was getting reached out to by all sorts of people asking me, how did we accomplish that? How did we make that happen? And the real answer is by you guys supporting this channel and being true supporters. Because that allows me to do my job and continue to make these different impacts. Dude, that guy over in LA, I forget his name, we got him a freaking car. You know what I'm saying? Not to mention how many people have been affected and impacted in this community. It's freaking amazing, man. And I like the amount of support that you end up getting from here, just even like going through the different challenges and stuff like that, like in your life, is also well worth it. Juice Junkie, what's up, brother?
I was muted. What's
that'll
up?
happen.
Oh, not much. Just listen, everybody. If you're not part of the Discord, please go over there, get connected, get inside the group. We're one of the most amazing communities of Discord. Like, unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing I wanted to say was, yeah, Rob getting maced and tased. That
Reminds me. I got to text him. I forgot to do it yesterday. I said I was going to do it, and then I totally forgot. So now I got to text him.
Yeah, definitely text him right now because I want to know how that went for him. And I'm pumped for him right now because he's making a big change in his life for a career.
Yeah, I know, right? Like, I'm pretty excited for him.
Yeah, it means a lot. Because dude does a lot. So,
yeah.
Another thing is, what's up with the Chinese that got captured in Ukraine? Is that like...
So, all right. So I looked really hard into this, right? About the Chinese over inside of Ukraine. So if you look a little bit deeper, so Zelensky he gave passport information, he gave like documents and things like that, right? All of that crap. But the line that got hid from most articles that got written on that was that Zelensky also stated he didn't think that they were ordered to go to Ukraine. He thinks just like, Ukraine's got its foreign legion, that it was the same thing. Right.
Yeah. So like Russia mistakenly placed Chinese inside of Ukraine, supposedly.
Well, I mean, the Chinese are going over to fight for Russia.
Yeah.
They've probably got some incentive. You got to think about this too, because, the Chinese economy sucks ass. And if Russia is paying them a fraction of anything, it's an improvement from their lifestyle.
On it.
Yeah. So it's just people signing up to go fight. Everybody's going to do it. I've been saying this for a while. I think that, in the 21st century that we're currently living in, that men aren't allowed to be men anymore. And that's why you have like all of these different youths joining gangs and things like that, because they don't have like good male role models in their lives. Like, look what took place in Frisco, Texas, and all this other crap. People are trying to make it about race. It's not. I promise you. I promise you it wasn't about race. And that's the other thing, man. I seen some like real racist shit coming out after that. But it's because like youth doesn't have the ability, and they think they got to do stuff like that in order to be men. And they just don't know what being a man is actually about. And it's, you should be able to fight, right? You should be lethal, but you shouldn't use it because somebody offended you or you got some gripe over a chair. That's retarded. So in my opinion, when you see things like that taking place, especially in economies like China's, or especially coming out of the US, you've got all these people that want to go over and see that big elephant in the room, which would be war, as young men. And when you have a financial incentive to do it, that's a great place to go. China has a massive economy, having 1,500 or 1,400, whatever it was reported. I don't think is that big of a percentage as far as, the actual size of their country goes. Texas, you think anything different on that?
No, all the intel I saw on this was, these are very they're not. I don't even think they were like former trained specialists in anything. They're just like individuals that joined, just like there's people from Africa, or it's not like the Chinese military sends soldiers to Russia to fight in Ukraine. It's Chinese people showed up to Russia to fight, most probably for an incentive contract bonus.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true, thousands.
And Andreas,
And-
Andreas just commented and made a good point too. Andreas commented and said, believe it or not, there are Americans fighting for Russia as well. And that's true. Look at assholes
are.
like, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you got to look
fighting.
at it.
They're more playing propaganda. They're not fighting
Right.
anything. Both
If
know
you don't
that.
see more than like 100,000 of Chinese in Ukraine, like there's not, they're just joining up like for what do you call those, missionary fighters or whatever. Because if you look back during the Korean War, China actually did send a lot of their soldiers over to go help North Korea.
I'd also
So
say, especially
you got to look at it as that too, because if you're only catching like one or two or
Right.
three, China's definitely not sending them over. They might be sending like cameras and like drone equipment to Russia and shit like that, but besides that,
well, Juice, think about this. How many peacetime, quote unquote, military people didn't get to see the action they thought they wanted to see and
Correct.
are just going and signing up thinking war is cool because they played some Call of Duty?
well,
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I'm trying to get to also, is that we got knuckleheads out there in the world that are like, oh, I play Call of Duty and I'm like top 10 ranked, so I can do this in real life. No, you can't. It takes a hell of a lot more than a video game to train somebody.
Yeah, no, I agree. And there was a lot of people back during like the start of this conflict that would be writing and messaging me saying, hey, I want to go fight in Ukraine. What can I do? Like, how do I get there? And some of them I'm like, well, what training? Like, do you even know your ass from a hole in the ground when it comes to war? And if your answer is no, and you're just going to go over there and think you're going to pick up a rifle and go kill Russians, what's really going to happen is you're going to get yourself killed or hurt, or you're going to get other people killed or hurt if you don't know what you're doing. And it's almost like a waste at that point, especially now that the war's drug on for so long. You got a lot of catch up to play. You got a lot of catch up.
That's what I was going to jump in and say. I was going to say, like, if it was 2022 and the war just broke out and you have a president of a free democratic country saying anybody that can help in any sort of matter, come, we will welcome you, and you show up and you're trying to actually help, if you're military or not, whatever, that's cool. If you're actually helping, you're 3 years into the war, you couldn't figure out how to get there till now, and you want to just jump on a flight and go to Ukraine. If you're not willing to put in real time training, like they will put you through in some of these newer more organized foreign legion units, and you will go through months of proper training just like you would in any other military. There is no like getting into Ukraine and within a week being on the battlefield anymore. But if you're willing to do all of that, then yeah, by all means come and join Ukraine and help Ukraine. But if you just want to just be involved and yeah, you're 3 years late for that.
Yeah, and
I don't know if Matt wants to downside another Green Beret, but the person that really proliferated that whole thought process was James Yeager going over there at the beginning and just kind of YouTubing like, oh yeah, I just came over and now I'm on the front line. But he was a Green Beret, and a lot of people forget, like, dude had training on training on training. He didn't just...
No, I could tell, yeah, and I agree with you on that. But I could tell you of stories that people didn't have the training and they ended up at the front line within a week or two. But it was a different time of the war. It's not 3 years in. Things are very organized. I remember Matt sitting on this channel still in the way back days and talking about like they need to just get better at combined arms, they need to just get better at combined arms, it's gonna work. And you can see one of the things they're doing in most of the almost every successful counter offensive and defensive maneuvers that Ukraine has been doing in the last 8 to 15 months has been very, very well organized, combined between air assets, if it's drones, FPVs, artillery from behind, if it's HIMARS working in together with the ground units, and at the same time assaults. Like if you go back 2 years to the end of 23, or even to the, I mean, you go back to the mid to beginning of 23, you had units doing assaults, artillery units working, not knowing their work, like not even not knowing, like just not even communicating between. You had 3 brigades working in the same AO, and then you had parts of the same brigade working 600 kilometers away from that AO. It was not that organized, because it was at the point where Ukraine was rushing into the hot burning kitchen. They were not worried about saving the food and making the plates pretty. They were worried about, first, let's not get the kitchen burnt down, and then we can worry about like starting to like save what's left to be saved and redo what's left to be redo. And that's a good metaphor, but that's pretty much how you look at it now. They are starting to work. The Ukrainian fighter pilots, fighter jets are doing daily sorties, not just defensive, which they were mostly being used for. And for the most part, in the beginning, there was like, obviously there was a lot of air-to-air stuff happening over Ukraine, like the very, very beginning. But then once that ended, it was Ukraine was saving their aircraft for only like, oh, we have cruise missiles coming, let's launch a couple aircrafts and chase them down. They were limited on what they were using them. Now, with new types of aircraft and Ukraine having a little bit more like the risk level of taking a risk went up a little bit more, because there's a better inventory and there's a bigger inventory of an air arsenal. Then you see Ukraine doing like actual combat air sorties, like dropping bombs on positions that are in the process of being assaulted. So it's like really working together. You have tanks doing shoot and move stuff that you haven't seen before. It's not in the Soviet doctrine to do that. Soviet doctrine, the tank is supposed to sit, shoot, drive forward, shoot, not shoot back, and like the way it should be. They're doing this by people forget that Ukraine, these Ukrainian brigades that have Western equipment went through training. People think they only went through training on how to use the stuff and how to fix the stuff and how to maintain it. While the crews were training on that, these brigades and these operators and the actual guys that are involved in all of the other parts of not just maintaining it, not just driving it or using the guns on it, all of these were going through training on NATO and Western style of utilizing these equipment. Also, they didn't come in and say, oh, we want you to use this tank like this. They just said, hey, if you use these tanks like this versus how you use your tanks, they'll probably last longer and they'll work better. So you can see Ukraine implementing this strongly across the whole battlefield over the last, like I said, 12 to 15 months.
There's also a huge handicap a lot of people don't talk about that Ukraine has, that most modern militaries and even previous militaries hasn't really had. Ukraine has such an influx of different weapon systems from different countries that they have such a variety. There is no just take this part from this tank, put it on this tank, now we've got a working tank again. Or, hey, if you know how to operate a tank, you can operate anything we have. You've got Leopards, Abrams, T-72s.
Yes. Yeah, but Ukraine, and this is something most people don't see this. Even here in the battlefield, most in the guys in the military over here don't see the logistics and service side of these things, and understand that yes, not every bolt is the same on Abrams, but when you talk about Western weapon systems, they're all to NATO's standard. So, like, yes, just because you know how to fire off a 155 self-propelled gun doesn't mean you know how to operate a HIMARS. But just because you know how to service a HIMARS, you can service a 155 truck as well. It's just because it's built to a specific NATO standard. It doesn't mean that the same bolt is there. It means that the same way that the manual for the mechanic was written for that truck, it was written for that truck because that's a NATO standard. So it makes it a little bit easier. And Ukraine has been
But you're working with not just NATO standard. That's what I was getting at. Is you've got NATO and ComBlock stuff that you're integrating along with historical World War stuff y'all ripped out in museums all together. Where the NATO standard helps with the modern stuff on one side, but you're still
and Ukraine has been doing a very good job to integrate it. And you can see, like, even in soft units, there's some guys out of like every assault unit that will still carry AKs, no matter how nice of a rifle you'll give them. It's because their principle is we're attacking positions that have ammunition stored for us once we get there, if we use this weapon system. If I run a 5.56 AR M4 style rifle and I storm a Russian trench, there's not going to be PMags laying around for me there stocked with ammo. But if I run a 5.45 or a 7.62 AK, 99.99% you're going to have stocked mags sitting in every dugout of that trench system waiting for you, because it's just how it works. So, but then again, some guys will give up that pro to having that for more accuracy, or for a higher powered rifle like a 308 AR style rifle, or even just something that, you know, they have, like whatever it is that they got given, if it's an M4, if it's an AR, or it's an AK. I ran an AK. Yeah, me too. I ran an AK for the most part. I had a 5.56 weapon systems for a short period of time, but yeah, I very, very quickly switched back to a 5.45 AK highly modded chassis, and it was just a workhorse.
So how do you,
anyways, Matt,
how do you feel? Yeah, so I got a picture from Rob that I'm over here editing right now. I was like, dude, I gotta.
I saw you laughing. I was gonna be like, what are you laughing at?
Well, you sent me. I was like, dude, do you have a picture that I can share of you with like a jacked up face from like yesterday or anything? And he's like, oh, absolutely. And so I got a picture of him following OC spray. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
He got sprayed and tased.
Yeah.
Texas, what's your thoughts on the 7.62 and 5.45 variants of the AUG being dropped and shipped to Ukraine from Austria?
I mean, I haven't used it, so I can't really tell you.
Brand new. It just.
I don't know.
For you guys.
It's cool. I mean, Ukraine does have pretty high stockpiles of that ammo, and Ukraine is lacking as far as. I mean, I'm not going to say that now. I can tell you when I was using a 5.56 rifle, we were lacking like options of types of ammo. They were just pretty much like full metal jacket, like NATO standard ammo. We asked for like green tip or whatever. They were like, yeah, okay, what do you think? This is like the gun shop here in Texas, they were saying. I think at this point they might be different because there's been a gap since then, but I still prefer like you're fighting if you're an assault unit and you're gonna assault Russian positions, I'd run a 5.45 or a 7.62 AK. I just think it's like, especially with it. I mean, there's a guy in here working that he can confirm with us that you never know, a 2-hour assault might turn into a 24-hour, 48-hour, 72-hour until you're going to get evac'd out of the air.
Right.
So if you're going to do an assault at some point, then you're going to actually know that there's going to be 7.62 and 5.45 sitting there for you. Why would you not? And you might end up having to sit there for a while, so you don't have to carry that. Yeah, he says 5.45. Me too. I like 5.45.
Controversial opinion. I'll say 54R is better than 308 for AP. We had an Mosin and some old AP ammo we found, and compared to the 308 AP ammo we had on a 1-inch blast chunk that we had cut off a truck, the 7.62 by 54R would put a lot deeper hole through armor than the 308 APs.
Matt, you tracking the Discord chat too?
No, I'm not. I'm busy editing these photos of Rob.
Somebody wrote, Matt, I would need some help. I'm gonna read it out. He's a new member on Discord because he has a new flower. So he's like, Matt, I need some help. I've called everyone and getting no answers. Scared for my kids' safety. I have drones over my house every day in grid patterns, and they shoot stuff off. They are low enough to see in my windows. We have 3 children. I'm scared for their safety. Who should I call? Called everyone.
Where do they live?
Somebody wrote that in the chat. Where do you live? He's in here. You can ask him.
Yeah, I mean,
He's listening. He's in the Discord chat.
Yeah, I mean, they can come up.
I was gonna say, yeah, what state you're in depends on.
Yeah, he's typing.
Northern
Michigan.
Holy shit.
Ooh.
That's insane.
Paintball.
I mean, number one, I would start with if the drones are actually up over there. Is he? Well, no. I mean, my question would be: are they in or outside of city limits? First question.
Okay, that's a question for him. There you go. He's typing. I just was browsing through the chat and I saw that and I was like, wait, that shit.
Is he in America?
He's Northern Michigan. He said, yes, we live in the. He says we live in the country.
So they can't shoot those damn things down.
Not.
How many drones at a time? Is it like?
Yeah, well, you can't just whoop out 5 or 6. He says, get some good videos. Get some videos.
Yeah.
First thing is you want to share evidence of it.
Get the evidence of it first.
Oh, that must have hurt.
Oh, this is just one of them. Hold on, this is just one of them. Hold on, this is just one.
Look at his eyes. He looks like he
they're all
smoked.
Hold on, wait for it. Hold on. That's a good one.
You gotta love the burn.
This
Any
one,
footage?
yeah, you gotta love the burn, right? Hold on. You ready? That one's even better.
I hate pepper spray. Wait, Matt. Oh, you were a cop too, so you had to do that too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Matt
it's no
did that.
It's no fun.
No, I know. I have a pepper
Face
spray
was so
story.
red.
I can.
Pepper spray.
I have a good pepper spray story. Just last week, my friend calls me and he says, "You want to hear a good one?" His father came to visit, and his father's old, and he had a pepper spray in his bathroom, like mirror cabinet. I don't know why he had a pepper spray there, but he had just like a full-size pepper spray there.
Dude.
And his father's like, he didn't read instructions, woke up in the morning, he's about to catch a flight to go back home, and he wanted some deodorant, and he grabbed the pepper spray, and he used it as deodorant, like his 78-year-old dad. Just he calls me, he's like, my dad's calling me that his armpits are burning. He can't figure out why.
All right. So let me answer this drone question real quick, right? Because if there is in fact like drones up overhead and it's a thing for them. So yeah, one, try to video that shit. Try to get pictures, which I'm assuming you already have.
He says he has videos. I have videos except for it shooting.
Okay, cool. So that number one. Number two, then get a hold of the FAA or get a hold of the sheriff's department that governs the area. That way they can get a hold of the FAA because depending on how high up they are, things of that nature, like all of that crap, that's all going to go into those like different flight rules and regulations, which hopefully you have. If you haven't, get a hold of the sheriff's department and actually put in a report. And then when you can, if the sheriff's department doesn't do anything about it, and if can
it not be those Amazon drones?
It could be the Amazon drones, but I don't know. I haven't seen the videos, so it's a lot of speculation. But if they're actually harassing and they're over there, get a freaking 12 gauge and start blasting those damn things down. Like if they're over your property and harassing.
That's what the other guy says.
Blast drones out of the sky. That's
a federal crime.
Federal offense. You will go to jail for that.
It's a federal offense to shoot drones over your own property?
Yes,
they just arrested an 82-year-old for taking a shot with his pistol, like his revolver. His revolver in Florida. The cops came there. They were like, "I'm so sorry. We got to do this because it's a federal thing. The FAA will file charges."
Listen, his best bet
is legal on them because it's not a destructive device. All you're doing is trying to obscure the camera.
I would refer to your lawyer for that.
You to
get an attorney. I guess don't ask me then because I have no freaking clue.
No, listen.
Matt, he says he called the FAA. And they gave him the runaround.
Look up and see if there's a drone company in your local area because they might be test flying.
That could
drones.
be too.
Because if he's seeing multiple of them together at once, that's probably somebody testing them from the facility. You know what I mean? And then just look in your regional area, see if there's any drone facilities that are developing drones or anything. And if there is, contact your local law enforcement. Tell them, hey, listen, there's a drone company over here. They're going over my house with things and dropping stuff or whatever the case may be. And then just go that route. Because then you got the...
Yeah,
I'm
bringing on it right now.
Here's the ad.
It is generally not legal to shoot down a drone in Texas or anywhere else in the United States. In fact, a number of federal and state charges can stem from this. FAA classifies drones as aircraft, and under federal law, drones are legally considered aircraft regardless of their size or purpose. This classification means they are protected under the same laws prohibiting interference with manned aircraft. Shooting down a drone could potentially violate several federal laws, including 18 U.S.C. 32, destruction of aircraft, 18 U.S.C. 1030, Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. Wow.
Yeah, this guy got fined $5,000.
So my question is why don't we fix that law? Because clearly drones and aircraft, clearly drones and freaking aircraft are two entirely different things. Somebody needs to
Well,
mute
they're not
themselves.
going to fix that. For the simple fact that they're going to have drones delivering packages for Walmart, Amazon, and all these other companies.
Yeah, that probably fixed it. Whoever that was up in there that I just muted.
That fixed it, yeah.
Yeah, that was a lot of
fixed it,
backfeed. I said you need to mute, but
What was that, me?
No, it's somebody that I just muted, and I feel really bad for doing it.
Amanda had a good idea. Just have some buddies come over and, since he's in the country, have a skeet shooting competition during, and just accidentally.
Yeah, but then there's the know your target and what's beyond it type deal, and so they can probably hit you for that one.
You can't play that game.
Mm-mm.
I would just, if it's a real issue and there's drones really flying there, take some good videos of it, call FAA. If they don't help, call the local sheriff. If they don't help, call the local news. Maybe they'll report on it. If they still don't help, I don't know, maybe call Blackwater or somebody.
I mean, can you, maybe if you can't shoot, well, you can't interfere with the aircraft, so you're not allowed to do a damn thing to them.
Yeah.
But the reason I asked, because the county, I don't know, man, there might be a specific ordinance that exists out there, or state ordinance that forbids them from flying them over private property or a certain amount of feet, something like that. And so maybe law enforcement can freaking do something about it. It's just annoying as hell. And they're being guarded by bullshit law.
Yeah, exactly. But like I said, just check if there's a drone company around you that are building and testing drones. See if you can get a hold of them and just talk that way. I mean, that'd be the best bet with law enforcement and all that.
Speaking of drones, do you know that, fun fact, Ukraine is on schedule to produce in 2025
the most drones ever.
4.5 million FPV drones. 4.5 million FPV drones. You know, somebody said that there is more than 5.56 ammo the U.S. military produces a year.
That's insane.
It's wild.
I mean, look at it. You got a $500 drone taking out a $5 million tank. I'll go for the drone.
The thing about the drones, and this is something that most people need to these videos, and I think, Matt, you should do a breakdown on it, maybe, of the general, the EUCOM general that is retiring now after 38 years of service. Mm-hmm. The Eurocom general sat in front of Congress at the committee and explained the breakdown of Ukraine, and he put the cards on the table. He really said it how it is. He said what Ukraine has been, and he said a lot of things like when they asked about Russia's certain capability losses or whatever, he said we'll talk about that in closed session. So a lot of things obviously public don't know, but what we do know is how he was spitting about Ukraine's capability and Ukraine's manufacturing of the weapon systems. And one of these things is, the thing about a $500 drone is not just that it's a $500 drone that's cheap to make and use. It's when the way these drones work is when, after a while, Russia figures out the frequency, they capture one, they shoot down one, they reverse it, they figure out what channel, and they'll build some sort of countermeasure to it. The good thing about this is that you don't need to redesign and start from scratch to build a new thing to counter that. All you need to do is know that, hey, you know what? They've been not working. These drones have not been hitting their target. Now let's adjust to that. And it's all in software adjustment, where it costs zero additional money to adjust to a counter to that, obviously, to that issue. So yeah, it's pretty cool, and I think that's all about what I'll go into the drone stuff, as we're on a very
weird
public
kick.
thing. What's up, Working Dad?
We're on a weird kick right
So-
now. Let me go through some of these comments we got over here. Kyle Exted. He says, I have a drone over my house in Wisconsin. I called the PD. They were very responsive. We have no ordinance in my town. PD took it very seriously, though. Adam Northam says, this guy Tall, the traveling clat, is so funny. He starts every video with your favorite white colonizer here. Oh, yeah, he is hilarious. Ballistic Squeeze came and gifted out 5 Speak the Truth memberships, and he became a freaking truth supporter as well. Hell yeah, dude. Welcome to the freaking club. Make sure you go get into the freaking Discord. Justin King says, Matt, restock the shirts. Shit, are we low? We need to restock shirts. You got it. Are we talking about the Hamas Hunting Club shirts, or are you talking about sweet ones like this that are like the Liberal 2 shirts that I have on? All right. Andreas says, believe it or not, there are American fightings for Russia. Yep, and there we got there. And I think I missed the one donation that ended up going before that, which was, where did it go? Always last in line, gifting out a membership as well. All right, sorry about that. Go ahead. Who we got? Working Dad? Working Dad.
We got a few other people down below raising their hand.
Yeah, I'm running out of time. It's almost 11. This is
Yeah.
extra long
Hey,
live for the day. but I
Matt
didn't
used to
mean
go to Bunker Brandon. Rob knows them really well.
Bunker Branding. What about him?
For your shirts.
Oh, I mean, I don't even know the company that he's using, but he's got
NFG is their own brand.
Yeah, NFG is its
Yeah, I
own
know
brand,
that.
but they've got their own freaking like distro and everything else because Rob's been doing this shit forever, and so he's just piggybacking off another company.
Yeah, I got nothing more for today. Yeah, I'm gonna leave you at that. Just waiting for the sun to come back and warm us up here a little bit since we got so cold again. So that's all.
What's the temp looking like over there?
Today, high of 5 Celsius.
Jeez.
No.
You
Over
guys-
here, I mean, he's got different temperature. We're far away from each other. We're in the same
Yeah,
country, but we're far away.
Yeah.
I'm at 25 right now.
Yeah.
Yo, what's the
Fair.
Kiev temp?
Yeah.
I got moved east of Kyiv, so as we left today from the city, the temperature dropped big time.
Yeah, it's been cold.
That sucks.
Yeah.
It's been cold.
And it's
But
snow all the way.
next week we're on schedule for 2022. So over here, at least where I'm at, so that's good. Yeah, I'll leave you guys with that. I gotta drop off.
All right, brother. You have a good one. I'm gonna go ahead and back out of here as well. And then, I want to show you guys like one last thing before I back out. You guys want to see something cool? This is the PACOM commander. All right, so the Pacific Theater Commander, all right, of the United States military is actually an F-22 pilot. I didn't know this. Check this out. He went over to freaking Hawaii. On a training mission to like intercept, I think that's what it is. But yeah, that's like the PACOM commander flying a freaking F-22, which is pretty rad to have somebody of that, like, I don't know,
Dude,
nature and
that's
size doing that,
badass.
right? Yeah, I was like, that's freaking baller. I love that. So not only do we have like F-22 pilots, but we got like, what was Hegseth, like an infantry officer, right? So we've got all these little badasses like in these really key positions in the United States military, which I think is really going to keep our enemies in check, which is great. All right, guys.
Oh
Thanks for
yeah, we
coming in.
got the G's of the OGs.
Oh, yeah, we got the OGs in there, man. OOGs. OOGs. That's what I'm talking about. All right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and back out of the Discord. Thanks for jumping in here and having a discussion. Stay safe, please.
Yep. Same. Likewise.
Where?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for joining me for another broadcast of the Speak the Truth podcast. I'll see you guys live tonight, 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel, and do not forget to turn on your notifications, because when wild stuff happens, we will be here to cover it. It's a little bit quiet right now.